Alright guys, completely unplanned FNAF game tier list. I realized I haven't done a FNAF tier list in a while, and I still see that a lot of people view my channel for my FNAF tier list that I made a while ago. So we're going to make a FNAF tier list on the games. I'm going to be honest with you, I have not interacted with the FNAF community in quite a while. Like, I have not watched. Usually I'm always watching a lot of the playthroughs from back in the day. I'm, going through Markiplier's playlists, etc. But I cannot say that I have really rewatched a lot of FNAF in the past few months. So we'll check it out. I think the last time I interacted with FNAF would be watching the movie, and then I talked about the movie, and then after that FNAF has definitely slowed down quite a bit since Secret of the Mimic and the FNAF movie. But regardless, we're going to talk about FNAF. So here we have FNAF 1. FNAF 1 I think is, and I mean this lightly, slightly overrated. And I just mean this from the gameplay perspective. I think everything else is honestly a 10 out of 10. I think that the atmosphere is amazing. I think that the lore that Scott Cawthon created at the time was absolutely incredible. It served as an amazing base for people to enjoy the game and speculate, and for a lot of mystery and hype to be built for the second game. I do think that because of the simplicity of the gameplay of FNAF 1, it does make replaying it a little bit of a pain, but and just because a lot of the other games are a lot more interesting from a gameplay perspective. Again, the gameplay is still very nice, very interesting. There's a ton of cool Easter eggs. Of course, you have the introduction of Golden Freddy. You have the posters constantly changing. But I do think that this game is S tier, but I think it's teetering on the bottom of S tier. Like, I could understand why somebody would put this in A tier, but just due to the fact that it's a classic and it's the first game that set the precedent, for how good FNAF is going to be, I do think that it deserves S tier. And I think a lot of people forget that FNAF was pretty much the first of its kind in terms of the way it was in a horror game, whereby you were the one who was stationary and people would come to chase you and you would have to act accordingly. That wasn't really done before, and that's what made it kind of stand out at the time. Next we have FNAF 2. Okay, here's the thing with FNAF 2, guys. FNAF 2 for me is an instant upgrade of FNAF 1. Now, before you guys hate me, because I do know that a lot of people actually don't like FNAF 2, which to me is pretty surprising a lot of the time. First of all, you have a ton of animatronics, far more than there were in FNAF 1. A ton more of the secret characters like Shadow Bonnie, Shadow Freddy, which just adds so much more mystery to the game. In my opinion, the gameplay mechanic is very repetitive. I can understand why a lot of people wouldn't want to come back to this game as well, just for the fact that it doesn't really have a lot of replay value in terms of the mechanics, right? You just flash Foxy, you put on the mask, and you wind the music box. That can kind of seem quite boring. But I feel like that's just FNAF as a whole, in terms of that once you master the mechanics, it's pretty hard to lose on the nights. But anyway, regardless, the visuals looked a lot better. The office setting was very cool. Obviously at the time it was very scary at the fact that you didn't have any doors anymore, right? You only had the lights. And a lot of people were questioning this puppet character because he stood out so much. So that's why I put FNAF 2 in S tier, because it is an upgrade of FNAF 1 in my opinion. I also will say that they built up on the lore a ton, right? Give Gifts, Give Life, the mini games, the screens that were going on, the fact that whether or not it was a prequel or sequel, that had MatPat and the whole community just confused. So a lot of that stuff is really, really cool. And when you create mystery in these kind of games, especially early on, it really, really allows people to want to see more from the series. Okay, I'm thinking, should I just do this in order? Or should I just do this? So these are like the troll games. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna rank these just because I'm just gonna put them here. Not because I hate them, but just because I don't really think they mean much. But should we just do this? I'll just do this in order. FNAF 3. FNAF 3. What do I think of FNAF 3? FNAF 3 is one of those ones, weirdly, where I actually view this quite a lot. Like, I actually go back and watch a lot of FNAF 3 content, but I don't really know why. I don't know if it's just because it's very easy to watch, right? In terms of gameplay, I would say FNAF 3 is one of the easiest games. Even the Nightmare mode in FNAF 3, I believe it's called the Nightmare mode, is really not that difficult. It's not as hard as, for example, the 1020 mode in FNAF 2. We've even seen recently that Markiplier got called out for supposedly cheating on his 1020 mode run, which by the way doesn't really matter because it's just so difficult, I'm gonna be honest. FNAF 3 was definitely, I think, the easiest out of these three games so far, and I think that just makes it really easy to watch for me. In terms of the lore, really added to the lore. I think it did amazing with the lore. I think this is the kind of direction that you want. And I will be honest, if this was the last game, let's just say for example, it would have been a pretty good end. But of course we do want more games. The fact that Springtrap was introduced in this game is absolutely incredible, because Springtrap was this amalgamation at the time supposedly of Golden Freddy, of Bonnie, and you know, he had this flesh and people were like, who is this guy? Of course now we know that it's William Afton, which again just makes this so much cooler, because William Afton is the villain of the series, right? The father of Michael Afton, who is the main character of the series. So this is canonically a very important game. I will admit the aesthetic of this game can seem a bit redundant in the sense that everything just seems like bogey colored, kind of green, misty, foggy. I do like the aura of this game. Also the ambience of this game is very cool. It's like very futuristic but empty and bleak. I do like it, but I do think comparatively to a game like FNAF 2 or FNAF 1, the atmosphere just doesn't hold up for me personally. Thinking back on it, it is cool that it's sort of like a boss fight between a father and son, but I just can't put it in that S tier. I don't think I can personally put it in A tier either, because the gameplay was a lot easier and it just didn't feel as intense as it did in FNAF 2. I'm probably going to put this in B tier. For some people that might be way too high. I know a lot of people put this game in like C tier, sometimes even D tier, because for the hype that this game had, a lot of people didn't feel like the gameplay matched that hype at the time, because this game was so hyped up. The trailer was insane. So I'm going to put this in B tier. I potentially could lower this, but I do enjoy this game a lot and I don't hate this game. I think it gets a lot of unnecessary hate. So I do like this game a lot. I'm going to put in B tier. I think it's a good B tier. I think this is a good representation of what B tier should be. Okay, who do we have next? FNAF 4. FNAF 4 is difficult for me. I'm not going to move it just yet. I'm just going to talk about FNAF 4 here. FNAF 4 is weird because it relies on the whole thing of there being a difference between your gameplay volume, right? Like being able to hear the sounds of the footsteps and when characters are moving to different doors, and then having a way higher volume for the jump scares, right? That's how they create that scare effect. That's how they make you jump. Of course the jump scares are absolutely incredible if you look at the designs. Probably the scariest design so far out of all 4 of the games, and honestly potentially out of the whole series. Very exaggeratively scary and violent and bloody. A lot of people hate the fact that they use that sound disparity to create the scares, right? That's why in FNAF 3 a lot of the jump scares aren't really as scary, because, or FNAF 2, because the sounds are in conjunction, or they are parallel with the gameplay sound. That is one criticism that I will have about FNAF 4, but honestly apart from that I can't really say anything bad about FNAF 4. The atmosphere is amazing. The chiming of the what's it called? The charming? No, not the charming. The chiming. The chiming of the grandfather clock. That's what it is. That kind of atmosphere. The sort of lonely household, very dark at night. The perfect representation of when you were just fearful as a kid of the dark and the mysteries behind that. A lot of the lore of this game is very interesting. The designs, of course, again, like I said, extremely scary. I think we kind of needed those exaggerative designs in the game, because so far they've been very mascot, very clean for the most part, with the exception of FNAF 3. And despite the volume of the jump scares being way too loud, the jump scares were amazingly animated. The mini games were very cool. They told the story of the bite of 83. And of course they created the viral meme of the bite of 87 from Markiplier. Also a lot of iconic videos were made from this game, and I feel like this was a very iconic time for FNAF. Like in my head I still have that image of MatPat's thumbnail when he has like the FNAF 4 Dream Theory. That's how popular this game was. Like this game killed it, and I think a lot of people say that this is one of the few actual scary FNAF games in terms of things that actually made them jump and the atmosphere actually felt really terrifying. I will say for me personally, just because all of the designs are so scary, it did kind of give a lot of the animatronics, or I guess whatever they are, a lot less personality, because they all kind of look like monstrosities. They didn't really feel like as characteristic as they did in FNAF 1 or 2, because you couldn't really see much. It was a lot more blood and wires and teeth and gore. So that would be another criticism, but honestly these are little nitpicks. But I do think Alright guys, I'm back. I had a package. Okay. What were we saying? What were we talking about? Oh yeah, FNAF 4. Yeah, FNAF 4, I think it's A tier. like really high A tier, like potential S tier kind of levels. I'm gonna put in A tier. Alright, so next we do have the Halloween edition. I am gonna rank this because it's a legit edition with different alterations to the game. Mostly cosmetic, but for example, Nightmare Mangle in this game had the music box kind of thing that she has going on in FNAF 2 that I think is really cool. Adds a different aspect to the gameplay. Nightmare Balloon Boy actually became a very solidified character within the series, which I do think is strange because he isn't even like he was an addition to the game of Plushtrap, which I think is really like, I don't know what's going on there, but you see him in UCN, you see him in a lot of the VR games. He is very prominent and I don't really know the lore behind why, but that's really cool. And I do like Nightmare Balloon Boy, I think he's really creepy. Or like the Jacko Chica, Jacko Bonnie, they're all really cool as well. Of course they are just cosmetic, but this whole thing as an update, and Night Marion as well, and the blind mode, I do think they are very cool. I would say that it's probably in the same tier as FNAF 4. I wouldn't really say it adds a ton, but I do like it as an addition, like as a small little thing. So I'm just gonna put it there. Now we have FNAF World. Okay, this is hard. This is hard, right? This one is probably the most controversial one. This either goes two ways, but I think if you're a genuine FNAF fan and you like the series and you like the game and you like the characters, you should like this game. And I know that it's weird to say that because this has completely defied the trend of the last few games, but I really do think that Scott Cawthon should be proud of this game. I know at the time he kind of disowned this game because it had a lot of backlash going on, but I really do think that this game is really good, well made. It's creative, it's cool, it's fun, it's easy, it's replayable. There is RNG in this game, but of course that's with any RPG. I think it's such a shame that the community at the time didn't allow for Scott Cawthon to make these kind of games, and I think if anything, a lot of people wouldn't mind seeing a second version of this game. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think that's the exact direction FNAF should go in, but I think in the future that could be a cool little thing to what FNAF World once was. I don't really have too much to say about this game, other than it's fun and it has a ton of animatronics. It was sad to see a lot of YouTubers like Markiplier didn't play the game, but again, they're allowed to play whatever they want. They don't owe the community anything. But I just think it was kind of like, it felt like a lot of the FNAF community didn't give this game a chance. To be honest, I do think it's maybe between B or C tier. With C tier, that's me saying it's average. I don't think it's average. I think it's like very low B tier. I don't know, maybe I just like FNAF too much, but I do think it could go in C tier. I do understand how people could say that. And I will admit, it's not my type of game. It's probably one of my least watched like games out of the series in terms of watching it on YouTube. But that doesn't mean it's bad, it's just not my type of game. And next we have Sister Location. This was when I was really watching YouTube. I'm gonna be honest, I only really started watching YouTube like late 2015, like early 2016. So this game came out, I believe, in late 2016. I just checked. This game is amazing. There's two ways you can go with Sister Location, right? This game is either very lazy in the sense of when you're going through the vents and you hear those sounds and that banging, nothing actually happens if you stay in the vents, right? It's a lot of perceived fear and a lot of illusion of choice in this game. It feels like you're in free roam, but in reality you are stuck in the same position a lot of the time. And a lot of people do hate that, and they feel like a lot more could have been done with this game to make it feel a lot more scary, or to add a lot more optionality in this game to make it feel a lot more free roam, because a lot of people realize that this game is probably just as fixed as a lot of the other FNAF games, but at the end of the day, it's a story mode. Like, what do you really expect, right? This game is a story, a lot more so than a lot of the other games. But if you look at it on the other hand, I mean, they literally went for a story. They have never really done that before. They kind of did storytelling with FNAF 4, but this was a proper story with pretty much cutscenes, unavoidable deaths. The animatronics look very polished and cool. They completely switched up the lore on this one by adding what was thought to be Purple Guy, but was actually Michael Afton rotting away through Ennard. They added Ennard. Ennard is like the final boss of FNAF as a whole. He's literally the amalgamation of all the animatronics. He is what we thought Springtrap was going to be. That's just super cool. The voice acting was incredible. Of course, the voice of Baby, Ballora, all of these animatronics came to be really iconic throughout the series. And guys, Circus Baby was introduced in this game, like Circus Baby as in one of the main if not, you could arguably the main villain in the whole of the series, if you think about how continuous she has been and relentless she has been throughout the games. Because there were times when Springtrap was taking a bit of a break. William Afton had to kind of sit on his butt for a little while Circus Baby did a lot of the work. A lot of big things were introduced in this game, and I think the biggest one was the lore. I do think at this point the lore did become quite convoluted, right? You had these discs, I forgot what they're even called now. These discs, these illusion discs, I think they were called. You have the what's it even called now? Like Fazgoo. It was for the beta, but it was always still interesting to listen to. And I would always listen to a MatPat theory, or I think it was Treesicle who used to make a lot of the theories as well. It's just interesting regardless of how complicated it is. But I do think for a lot of people it was when they became less attracted to wanting to learn and listen to the lore, which I completely understand, right? At the end of the day, you are playing a game and you do want to get down to the nitty-gritty on the lore, and if you can't really do that without watching a ton of YouTube videos, that is a turn off for a lot of people. So I will say that as a whole, what is Sister Location? Lore good, gameplay good, but no replayability. That is a big thing that differentiates this game from a lot of the other games. No replayability. That is a bit of a detriment. But then you have the custom mode, which was just honestly one of the best balanced custom modes after the patch. Before the patch it was very difficult, but after the patch, honestly, perfectly balanced. I would say that this game is an A tier. Do I think it's better than FNAF 4? I would say yes. My reason being, just listen to me guys, the custom night honestly carried so hard. I think the custom night, if that was not introduced, I probably would have put this game in B tier, like high B tier. But I think the custom night boosts this to a high A tier. Really and truly, I do think it does. And I think if you're a first time player, FNAF Sister Location will probably be one of the best experiences you can have above a lot of these other FNAF games. So you know what? I know some people are going to hate me on this. I'm going to put it above FNAF 4. But that's crazy though, that is crazy. I don't think it's S tier though. We'll see what happens. I don't know, I might have to change this around. Alright, who do we have? We have FNAF 6. Not who, what do we have, I mean. FNAF 6, also known as Pizzeria Simulator. I'm gonna be honest, this game, what do I think of FNAF Pizzeria Simulator? I think this kind of gets the same treatment as FNAF 3 in the sense of a lot of people will kind of discard this game. They kind of see it as a side game, like not a side game, sort of not as good as the main, like FNAF 2, FNAF 1, Sister Location. But I really do think that this game is really underrated. I will say that they definitely made some mistakes with this game. I think the character design in some aspects was a bit too much for a lot of people. In terms of, for example, let's say Scrap Baby, kind of like the claw and everything at the time seemed very over the top. But then when you think about it, it's not really over the top because she was just salvaging parts to survive and just try to kill people. A lot of people also did not like Scrap Trap, which I mean, it makes sense. And I mean, it's like he burned in a fire. I mean, what's he really gonna look like? But also there were a lot of differences between Scrap Trap and Spring Trap that didn't really make sense. And I get why a lot of people called that out. I will be honest, that just does not really make sense. Like there was like flesh in places that there wasn't flesh before. The bones look different and his internals just look different. A lot of the design choices were very weird. I will say that they introduced Lefty. Lefty was very, very cool. Trap the Puppet, I like that idea a lot. I like what Lefty stands for. A lot of people like the fact that Lefty was designed by Henry Emily and how that tied into the lore, because at the time Henry Emily wasn't too well known at this point. We only had seen him in the end of FNAF World and I think maybe a little bit through Sister Location. I don't remember at this point, but this game added a lot to the lore. The mini game, like the Midnight Motorist mini game, the reveals as well, like who Charlie was and her backstory in that maze mini game. A lot of really, really cool hint drops and lore drops were dropped in this game. I also do like how they had two aspects to this game. You had the regular FNAF office kind of mode, and then you had the Pizzeria Simulator mode. I think it's very, very cool to mix the two of those, because at the end of the day, sometimes it can get a bit redundant to just play in the same office over and over and over again. Although I will admit the office section for this game confused a lot of YouTubers at the time. I remember like 8-Bit Ryan and a lot of the other people were just kind of confused how it even worked. Even though it is very simplistic in terms of difficulty, I do believe that this game is one of the easiest, if not the easiest FNAF game in terms of the office modes. A lot of people were just confused what was going on. I do like as well how in this game there's a lot of variability in terms of who you can let in and who you can let out, and which animatronics can attack you and which ones can't, based on who you salvage and what you decide to do. There's a lot of different endings, so I do think that this game provides a lot of optionality and variability. And I do feel like a lot of people ignore that and kind of discard that. But I think this game did a lot of things that a lot of FNAF games had not done yet. That being said, due to the FNAF designs, character designs not being all that great, and a lot of the jump scares were quite cheap and quite simple. But again, there was a lot of assets in this game, so I understand why they took that shortcut. I could see why people would kind of put this in a B tier. I personally would put it in B tier. I would say it's better than FNAF World. Maybe FNAF World needs to go down a bit, I don't know. FNAF UCM. A few years ago, especially when this came out, I was like, you know what, this is the best FNAF game. I was like, this is the best FNAF game. They have all the animatronics, they have secret characters, they have all of the offices, a throwback to a lot of the different games. The gameplay mechanics are perfectly balanced, which they are. And it's super complicated, so it's really, really nice to see a big challenge for the FNAF community like we've never seen before, right, in the form of 50/20. And I remember the race to 50/20 was absolutely crazy, seeing Dorco try to do it. But it was just really, really cool to see a lot of YouTubers' attempts at trying to do well in this game. And it's super impressive that Scott Cawthon even managed to balance all of the different aspects of the game, because there's just so many different buttons and key bindings. I mean, I'll show up on the screen now, it's insane. I can't really say anything bad about this game. This game feels like it's kind of protected from any sort of hate, because it feels as sort of like a side game. It doesn't really have, or seemingly at first didn't really have much of a story to itself, but it actually did. We of course find out that this is William Afton's purgatory, and that we are William Afton in this game most likely. We find out the person who's controlling all of the animatronics is Cassidy, who is Golden Freddy. I think that was really, really cool when we found that out. I do like a lot of the theories behind this game. Of course, the voice lines are really, really cool. It's really cool to see voice lines for characters that we never heard of before. And even the jump scares being very simple is understandable, because there's just so many things in this game. So honestly, I'm going to give this game an A tier. I think this game is really, really good. I think that there's not really much to say bad about this game. I do like the slight RNG in this game, although I do wish it was kind of avoidable at times when I was trying to go for serious runs. I'm going to put this... I do think is it better than FNAF 4? Don't know. Is this better than FNAF 4? You know what, it's my list. I'll put it here. Okay guys, I don't know. Like, to me, these are all kind of in A tier. Okay, next we have, okay, so the VR games, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know too much about, so I will be leaving those, I'm sorry. I did watch the playthroughs for them, but again, because I don't personally have a VR headset, I don't really play them. I think it'd be unfair of me to judge them when I haven't really had the same amount of replays with these games as I have with the base ones. So I'm gonna leave those in the ratings. We're gonna go straight over to Security Breach. Okay.
Please, give me in. Friday, bitch!
Security Breach for a lot of people is either like C tier or S tier. It's one of the two. It's never really in the middle. For me, it is. You know what it is? For me, it's A tier, just because the sheer amount of content in this game. It's so hard to say that this game is bad. I know that when this game came out, it had a ton of bugs and issues, but I think to just ignore the plethora of content that was in this game, so much optionality, an actual free roam game, unlike what was advertised in Sister Location, kind of. You can actually do a lot of whatever you want in this game. I will admit the save options were really, really annoying in this game. I felt like a lot of the horror from this game didn't come from the fact that the animatronics were scary, but more so that you would lose your save if you died. That was really, really scary for a lot of YouTubers and a lot of playthroughers. What am I even saying? But with that being said, the story was good. I do think that at the end they kind of pushed it a bit too far with the whole, what even was he? Whatever variation of Springtrap was at the end. I don't remember what he was called, genuinely. But you had him, and then you had like Molten Freddy come and like take him up into the roof. I remember that scene. But it just seemed a bit too convoluted at that point, I'll be honest with you guys. For the lore, for me, it kind of ended in Security Breach. Like, I kind of stopped fully knowing absolutely everything about the lore after Security Breach. That was sort of my breaking point, and that's not really their fault. A lot of people will go and really want to understand the lore, but for me, just way too many things going on. But even if you ignore all of those things about the lore, you know, Glamrock Freddy, absolutely amazing character, very fatherly sort of feeling. Gregory, as annoying as he is of a little kid, he is a good main character for this series, I do think. And you know, they gave Roxanne a lot more personality in FNAF Ruin, which we'll talk about in a little bit more. I do think balancing everything, like the glitches, the animatronic designs weren't too scary, but they were clean, polished, good graphics, good story. Free roam, first free roam game, big story, a bit too convoluted. I think balancing all of those things maybe you could actually argue B tier. But what I also do want to say is the fact that this game had on social media at the time, it was very, very big, especially on TikTok. This grew the fandom quite a lot. I think it also reached out to a larger audience for new people to be introduced into FNAF. I think a lot of people actually got introduced to FNAF through Security Breach, which is really, really cool. At the end of the day, people getting introduced into the games is always a good thing. Now that I'm looking at it, is this game better than FNAF 3? I don't know. I also do think Pizzeria Simulator is a little bit better than FNAF 3 actually. This has so much more content. Again, it's kind of unfair on these earlier games because they're of course going to be a lot more simple, but I think FNAF 6 is better than FNAF 3. I don't know, we'll see. Next we have, who do we have? Ruin. It was really cool. It's one of my least viewed games. I don't really play through it. I think I only played through it once. I think it did add a really good horror aspect that FNAF Security Breach, the original one, didn't have. I think it made the animatronics a lot more scary. I think the jump scares were really, really good. But it still sort of had a slow paced sort of story feel to it, which is different. And I think a lot of people did like, some people were okay with it. I think that this is maybe a C tier for me. I'm sorry guys, I know a lot of people liked Ruin, especially when they added that story sort of aspect, the emotional scenes to Roxy, etc. But I think this is C tier. No, it's an addition to the game. It's hard for me to really rate it. In reality, it probably should be B tier because it's still Security Breach, the same characters. A lot of the things to me kind of seemed a bit over the top. I don't know, like for example, Glamrock Freddy having like no head. I don't know, it's cool, but I don't know, a lot of these things in the game felt like they were just trying to scare me rather than actually being scary. Okay, this is Into the Pit, right? Into the Pit, when it was coming out, I was really hyped for this game, and I do think it delivered quite well. A lot of people did enjoy this game, but to me personally, this game is C tier for me. It's not a bad C tier. And I want to kind of explain myself here. It's not because it's a pixelated game or like a retro style game. It's not because it's 2D. It's not because it's, you know, it's not anything to do with the fact that it's different. I just couldn't personally develop an attachment for this game like I have with the other ones. And it's not even because of nostalgia or anything like that. I honestly just don't know what it is. I really tried. I watched all the playthroughs. I even played the game and I just could not feel it. I wish I had more of an objective explanation as to why I didn't like this game, or I didn't like this game as much, but I really struggled to like this game as much as a lot of other people did. And I'm glad that a lot of people like this game because I think it's nice to see Scott Cawthon reach out and try to do different types and styles of games and actually succeed. He didn't really succeed as much with FNAF World, so it's nice to see people liking Into the Pit. But for me, I don't know, it just didn't really hit for me. It's not that the story was bad. I think it was really, really cool. I think Oswald's a good main character. I think it was creepy. I think the jump scares were good. The animation. It's just not for me, guys. I'm sorry. There's lots of different endings. It's just not my type of game. I'm sorry. This is a objective, but at the end of the day, it's my tier list, so it's going to be somewhat subjective as well. And finally, we do have the most recent game, and I'm sorry guys, again, I haven't really touched a lot of these games, so I'm just gonna put them here. Obviously in reality I do think the VR games are up here, but I just haven't played them. Okay, Secret of the Mimic. Where do I start with this game? When this game came out, I bought it on the day, and I was actually gonna release like a whole series of me playing the game, and then I got sick. So I was sick and I was ill for like a week, and in that week when I was really sick, I watched the YouTubers play it instead, because I was like, I can still enjoy the game and play it even though I know what's going to happen. It doesn't really bother me personally. So I was watching these YouTubers play through. I was watching Markiplier, 8-Bit Ryan, and everyone else, and my conclusion was that this game felt like as though it was trying to compete with Poppy Playtime. And I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that. This game felt like a downgrade to Security Breach. I'm sorry, like it felt like they were just trying to throw a lot of things in there. And don't get me wrong, from what I watched at the time, the lore did kind of make sense, what people were speculating. But again, sort of the same thing with Into the Pit. My attachment to this game just could not really be formed, and a lot of the gameplay sequences were quite just, they just didn't feel, I don't know, like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me and like my attention span is cooked, but for me, this game just did not feel as interesting as Security Breach. And it's all the same style of game, right? You have free roam, you have these animatronics walking around. And don't get me wrong, there were some really cool moments, like when we saw Chica, like the first ever Chica roaming around, the fact that we found out that William Afton stole a lot of the ideas, like finding out who Fiona was. But I just can't say I found this game really interesting, and this game kind of felt like a very much 2025 horror game that was trying to just keep up with the trends. That's just how it felt to me. And I remember hearing Markiplier's speech when he was playing this game, and how he was talking about how FNAF used to be something that he sort of enjoyed, and now it feels just like something he can't really enjoy as much. And I really relate to that, and I don't really think that's Scott Cawthon's fault or Steel Wolf's fault or anyone's fault. I just think it's the landscape of gaming and horror gaming in general, to the point where things now just feel very redundant, and nobody really knows what makes an enjoyable game anymore. And that's not their fault. Even I don't know what makes an enjoyable game anymore. I don't know why I like early games so much, apart from nostalgia. And I just wish that, and I hope that for the next FNAF game, that they make a game that truly just feels like FNAF again. I don't know if they can do it. I feel like Call of Duty also has the same issue at the moment. No matter what they kind of do, to be honest, they are a very greedy corporation, but whatever style they do, whether it's jetpacks or, you know, boots on the ground movement, they just can't make a good Call of Duty game that people love as much as Black Ops 2 or Black Ops 3. And I feel like FNAF suffers the same fate here. That being said, Secret of the Mimic is still a good game, but for me it's like here. And I'm sorry, like there's so many cool references and cool like lore drops in this game, but it's just not that interesting. Like I haven't come back to watch this game since maybe September. Like a few months after it released, I rewatched it, and I was just not that interested. Don't know why. I watched Security Breach, and I rewatched Security Breach more than I do this game, so it's just a shame. I wish I could explain why again. I just can't. But anyway guys, that is my tier list. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that made sense for the most part. I tried to explain myself, but with a lot of the recent games, I just haven't been able to enjoy myself, and I think that's more of a subjective thing. If you guys disagree or agree with my tier list, actually I'm just looking at it now, does it really make sense? So yeah, FNAF 2, FNAF 1, Sister Location, UCN, FNAF 4. I think that's fair. Yeah, if you guys enjoyed, leave a like. Let me know what you disagree with. If you do disagree with me, please do not roast me. My taste literally changes every month when it comes to FNAF games. Like I could probably put FNAF 3 in an A tier next month. It's just the way it is. But yeah, well, I hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for watching.